Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of a Powerful Mind interview series. Today, I am so thrilled and excited for someone I truly, truly love. This is my dear cousin, Ayanna Sealy, who is an actress, a ballerina, an entrepreneur, a public speaker, an executive coach, and CEO of Magic Makers. Ayanna, welcome to the Power Mindset.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure. I'm so happy that we're doing this finally. And you are someone whom I love very much, and so I'm thrilled that we get to join forces today.
Fantastic. So, just for everyone, Ayanna, I want you to tell us your story.
Okay, so you started with ballerina, etc. So I started as a little dancer. Grew up in Trinidad and Tobago, always wanted to be on stage, came from a highly academic family, as Jeff knows, and
Mhm.
so did not always know how to articulate that, but that thing was not leaving me. And so when my family migrated to Toronto, I got to be in a school for the arts because luckily we had family friends already in that school and got to really blossom in that way. And so when it was time for, what school are you going to go to? What are you going to study? Was drawing blanks. And so luckily my dad said, why don't you go to Alvin Ailey with your friend who's already going? And I thought, great, I don't have to say it. So I went off to Albanese, and within 4 months, I started noticing that the tops of my feet were pitting, sorry, because they were swollen. We were dancing like many, many hours a day. And so then I was diagnosed with something called lymphedema, which is a condition where my feet swell. It runs in the family, but there's early onset and there's later onset. I just have, and what I've learned now, being more familiar with the lymphedema community, is that sometimes it happens with a significant event. And I would imagine that my dance and dancing as much was my significant event, and my onset came on early. So I quit. I quit dance. I came home because it was too hard, too many infections, and I went back to school. I tried to study computer science. Um, Not sure why I did that, but I think it felt like the best thing because I had great math marks and I could get in and I got in and was failing miserably. So at the same time, and I guess we'll talk about this, we'll talk about staying open. I'm a very stay open person. Stay open to what is possible, even when things don't seem like they are happening in the background, they always are. And so, as I was going through school and on my way to being asked to take a leave of a year off, I was also asked to go dance in Bosnia to perform for the Canadian troops. And my parents, again, I don't know if they're living vicariously through me, but said, go have this amazing experience. And that was the moment that I knew that I couldn't in that, at that point of time, be doing anything else other than performing. I just didn't know what that looked like because before I was performing and I wanted to be a ballerina, I wanted to be in a ballet company, or I wanted to be in the Alvin Ailey company. Alvin Ailey was like my dream. But I knew that I couldn't because now, my feet, I would have to dance in bare feet. And that was the thing that caused me to get infections.
Mm.
So it's such a crazy thing how things kind of unfold. So eventually I stopped going to school because I was asked to take a leave. But then I had met enough people now through performing that someone said, you should get an agent. Do you have an agent? I said, no. Why do I need an agent? She goes, because then you'll get booked out and you will go do stuff. So I got in, she introduced me to her agent, who is now my friend of decades. Um, and within a year, I booked the Lion King, I think, within a year of being with him. So, or 2 years or something. So Lion King was my dream actually. And I booked that show and then I booked the Stratford Festival and I performed for about 11 years. And then I realized that again, that pull, I always had this dichotomous pull. this academia, this arts, this academia, arts, but they couldn't align. They were in two separate zones, and I had to keep bouncing back and forth. And so um, eventually I went back to school and I decided that I would study psychology, which was aligned with acting and psychoanalysis in psychology, character analysis in acting. Felt like the best thing to do. It's funny how we run from ourselves because I was that kid who would skip classes in high school, and all the older students, grade 11, 12, 13, would be coming, talking to me, Ayanna, I'm having a bad day, etc., etc. When I was 5 years old, I told my mom's mom, Granny, it's okay, you can talk to me. It's not just because I'm 5 years old. You can tell me your problems. And here I am, right, at age 31, back in school studying psychology. So when I was thinking about how I would specialize, because I knew I didn't want to just do a basic degree, I really knew that I didn't want to be doing pure clinical psychology just on its own, because I felt like I am a performer, I am an artist, and I don't want to move too far away from that. So I started looking at sports in '08 when I started my degree, and that led me to sport and performance psychology. And that's a whole other story. We don't have time for that right now. But it led me to that. And then I did my master's in sport and performance psychology. And then this is what I've been doing for the past, coming up to 11 years now. Um, and I have evolved that from being a mental performance consultant to now being an executive coach as of last year. I've worked with artists, executives, athletes for them to achieve their peak levels of performance, but also for them to connect. The added layer that I bring is the connection to self, the self-love component, the worth, the self-belief, because there's a lot of mental performance tools that you can provide. But if you don't believe that you can achieve these things, and if you don't believe that you're capable, right, that's half the battle before you even get in the arena and start to utilize those mental tools. So, and this was the people component, which is so important for me and the work that I like to do and the work that really jazzes me up. Um, and so, yeah, I created a program, a 12-week program for executives, artists, athletes, now, almost 5 years ago, where we explore all of those things, right? We explore the self-love, we explore your goals and dreams, we explore all the things that are leading you to that one vision. But there's so many steps in between. And there's also you being a holistic person in that you are not just an athlete. You are an athlete and a son, a brother, a friend, a cousin. You have all of these other ways that you are required to show up in the world, and all of the attributes that you need to be an athlete, not all, but most, are also required. Courage, fortitude, communication style in your relationships, at work, right? So it's about addressing the whole person versus just you as an athlete, you as an executive, to make sure that you're really developing the tools that you need for life and for the things that you want to be doing. That was long, but
Fantastic, amazing, multi-layered, multi-dimensional story. That's a
mhm.
biography. That's a movie in the making, cuz, hey?
Yeah.
In the making. Um, I wanna I wanna connect two parts of your life.
Yes.
So you had your earlier life as, I would say, the performer, right? Either
Mhm.
ballerina or as a stage actress with the Lion King and other
Mhm.
performances you've done. And then
Mhm.
you have this part of your life as a performance coach.
Mhm.
Can you just connect the two lives, and how did your experiences in one life
Mhm.
support and guide you in your current role as an executive and performance coach?
Yes. Um, great question. I mean, the basic answer is that I've done this at an elite level, so I can relate to people who perform at an elite level, whether you're an actor, an artist, um, sorry, an artist, an athlete, or an executive, right? So there's that understanding that I know what it is to be like, no, we're not achieving mediocrity here. We're achieving excellence. We're achieving the highest level that we can. We're achieving the results that are based on giving 100%. We're not talking about perfectionism. We're talking about extreme excellence. Because to me, perfectionism, that's a module in my program. It sets you up for um, you know, unrealistic expectations, etc. So this was the tie. The tie was that even watching the Blue Jays, for instance, that was one of the things that pulled me in, the 2008 Olympics. It was I have always been drawn to high performers and high performance, right? Always been like, wow, I don't want to see this little two-bit dance. Not that there's anything wrong with the little dance company, but I want to be a part of Alvin Ailey, the world-renowned dance company. So there was that draw for me of like, no, I don't necessarily want to build people from scratch. I want to build people who are already at that level, who already have that desire and that drive to be that high performer. That's where I want to meet them. I want to meet them and elevate them. And then you realize that we're seeing people who are performing at the top of their field, right? In the top of their field with so much insecurity and imposter syndrome and perfectionism and all those things. So you're realizing they've hit a glass ceiling, right? They've hit a ceiling that has so much more potential. But because if you're the CEO of a company or the director of a company, then there's this expectation that you've arrived, you've reached, you've gotten to where you're going. There's nowhere else to go. And the pressure that they would feel is like, no, but I have so much more inside of me. In fact, I was a great painter when I was 19, but I made the choice to study finance. And now that's an easier route because I make more money. But the painter in me is still alive and still needs to be fed. So there's that kind of thing that really fascinates me about the human condition in that we're multifaceted. We're amazingly layered beings. But because of society, we tend to subscribe to, a certain version of ourselves. And my job is to really open you up to all the parts of you. And that doesn't mean that you're going to become a painter, but it means that you can bring the aspects of you who is a painter into the executive part of you and incorporate all of that because then you're functioning at your highest level. Then you're actually functioning at your highest level when you are fully expressed and in full expansion of who you are.
So it seems to me through your performance life,
Hmm.
your study of psychology,
Hmm.
and in your current role, mindset, it seems like a common thread and navigating high performance mindsets. Now,
Absolutely.
my company's called the Power Mindset, and my goal is to empower youth to have a
Hmm.
healthy, strong mindset to navigate their world.
Hmm.
But this mindset has a very diverse meaning. So I want you to hone it down for us.
Hmm.
How would you define mindset with all of your experience?
So coming from, and you're right, mindset now has become this catchphrase, right? Everyone is talking about mindset. What does it actually mean? And for me, it has been ever since, being a small child at 7 years old and getting my foot run over by a car and having a big scar on my right foot and having children stare or be because you live in Trinidad, so you're not wearing socks all the time. So now everyone's seeing your foot. Oh my gosh, what happened to your foot? It's about getting lymphedema. And now, as an adult, people going, oh my gosh, what happened? The mindset for me is being able to push through those difficult moments and see that, while something is present today, I heard something yesterday, you may not be winning this battle, but will win the war, right? And that for me is mindset where it's like, okay, I understand that this is happening, but it doesn't mean that it'll be there forever. It's resilient mindset. It's a way of knowing that I will get through this. I can stay open. I may not be functioning the way that I like right now, or I may not be achieving what I want right now, but I will, right? It's the ability to really get up when you are knocked down. That for me is like having a powerful mindset. I don't want to say positive mindset because for me, positive mindset is like, okay, it's like staying in that sense of um, things will be positive in the future, but we can slip into that overly positive kind of Pollyanna. I think it's important to acknowledge. So mindset for me is acknowledging what is going on, being honest with yourself about how you feel, giving yourself the grace to feel those things and move through those emotions. And then the last thing is, and everything's going to be great. Everything's going to be fine. Things will get better. Things always get better. I will learn how to do this. I've learned how to do things in the past. It's reframing things as well, right? So taking something that seems detrimental or catastrophic seems, right, in the moment, and reframing it. I suck. I'm an idiot. And just going, no, I'm on my way. I'm on my journey. I'm doing my best. That for me is, having the capacity to navigate life with mindset is being able to take situations that are challenging and may seem daunting and turn them around to face a different direction and move on a different trajectory.
So from what I see, there's two key terms I heard from you:
Hmm.
resilience
Hmm.
and reframing.
Hmm.
Can you take me into your current world
Hmm.
when you're working with executives or high performance athletes or artists? And how do you get them to, because if they are at the high level performance, they've already demonstrated a certain level of resiliency.
Yes.
So how do you get them to recognize their own resilience,
Hmm.
or how do you work with them in terms of reframing their own mindset in your actual practice?
Yes. So you're right. High level performers have demonstrated quite a bit of resilience in order to get there. Sometimes, how do I say this? Think of a marathon,
Hmm.
right? So think of if you stand at the finish line of a marathon, everyone who crosses the finish line, but you don't know what each person went through en route to that finish line, right? So at the end of the day, you go, wow, you're so resilient, you're so strong, you've done so many things, you have all these credentials. But what we discover in our work is how many people have challenges getting there, how many people have that imposter syndrome. So there's a lot of angst getting there, even though they seem to get there. So we acknowledge the resilience, and then we then backtrack and we see, okay, who are you? I want to know who you are. Like I just told you guys my whole life story. I want to know who my clients are. I want to know who they were at 5. I want to know what their experiences have been to lead them to this point. And we start to delve into um, you know, how they navigate stuff, right? So we see the kind of the source of the resilience, like is it self-flagellation that gets you to that point, or is it like no, I'm being gentle with myself, I'm being graceful with myself. For me, resilience has the compassion component.
Fascinating.
That's my take on resilience is not the browbeating of yourself. It's not telling yourself you're an idiot, get up. It's not the tough love, it's the compassionate love. It's the compassionate component. So you still are going through things, but you still give yourself grace. The same way that you would give grace to a loved one, right? Who's going through something tough. We often don't beat up on our loved ones. I'm not saying no one does, but so that's the resilience component for me. Then that actually leads quite nicely into reframing, which is when people are saying things or believing things about themselves, we fact check, we go into what's true about the situation. What do you believe about it versus what is actually objectively true about the situation or about yourself or about another person, right? We actually go and say, okay, what's true? And so therefore, is that statement correct? And so let's reframe the statement that you just said. Let's make it make more sense in the context of the world that you are living in, that you're existing in. So we will actually rewrite phrases, negative phrases that come up. We all have them. The subconscious replay that goes on when something goes wrong and we beat up on ourselves. Um, and then we reframe it. We rewrite it and reframe it. And then I have them put them up so that they can see, so that the brain starts to assimilate the information in a different way versus the things that we have been saying to ourselves all the time.
So it seems to me you work a lot with their limiting beliefs
Hmm.
or the stories that creep up in their heads or the
Yes.
narratives that they've lived through in their lives.
Yes.
Do you think it's important for elite athletes or executives to share those stories?
Their limiting beliefs that they
Mhm.
have been through situations that have exacerbated limiting. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think so because it makes it, you know, we've had who is it? DeMar DeRozan from formerly from the Toronto Raptors, um, Clara Hughes, different those were mental health specifically, but you find when
Simone Biles with the gymnastics.
Simone Biles, um, when those stories are shared, some people who think in a different way may have their opinions. Most people are so grateful that there isn't that wide a disparity between me, the normal person, and this phenom of an athlete, right? So it humanizes them. And while Simone Biles will be able to do far more than the average person, what you realize is like, oh yeah, but she still goes through things like me. And so it's okay if I go through them too. It's okay because here's a person performing at the highest level and she's saying, I struggle too. I struggle, right? I have limiting beliefs. I have things about myself. I do experience, so many performers, my gosh, who are so unsure of what it is that they're doing. They're like, I've heard performers say at the top of their field, I have gotten to the point for some reason where anxiety is set in and I don't know what my process is. So it's like if someone were to ask them to replicate it, they're suddenly panicked that they don't know what they're doing after 30 years in the business.
Wow.
Like, yes, it is fascinating because suddenly it's like you're working in this subconscious place and then all of a sudden your conscious mind clues in, clicks and goes, "Whoa, I don't even know how I did that for 30 years. Like, I don't know how to tell someone how to do that." And that can be quite angst provoking. So I think that it is important to share stories 100%. I think that it gives people a little cushion and to say, I go through that too. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this amazing person, this public figure also goes through what I go through. And I think that's yeah, that's how we can, I don't know, what's the word? Comfort each other, show compassion as a society, is sharing our challenges.
It's fascinating. 'Cause another thought came to mind. I always want you to comment on this.
Mhm.
It also kind of shows that this is all just a journey, that the journey never really, we don't really get there,
Yeah, that's
right?
right.
But we
That's
just want
right.
to have strategies and processes and systems in place to help us guide through these difficult times.
Yes.
But we'll still be refining these practices, and we don't really we get better and we grow, but we have to keep continue to get better and grow.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I feel that whenever I hear the word growth,
Hmm.
it just kind of relieves me. It gives me a sense of accomplishment and relief at the same time.
Hmm.
What do you think?
Oh, I am the person who says, if I am given the blessing of being on this earth till 96, I will be learning and growing as much as I can. Because for me, you never arrive, right? You set goals, you meet them. Sometimes you set goals, you shoot past them. They're just guideposts, right? And they're little points to let you know your work is paying off and what you are doing on this earth is great and you're being recognized. Some people are never recognized for it. But I think growth and having the humility to really understand that you have not arrived, right? How many people do we know who are like, I'm the expert, I know everything. I've heard people say that I know stuff. It's like, well, within the confines of you knowing stuff, is there still not room to grow? Is there still not room to refine? Right? And sometimes the messenger may come in someone who knows less than you. And you have to be humble enough to go, huh, I did not think of that. Thank you, so and so. That was a great idea.
It's
Right?
it's interesting because I also think humility is a very underused word, I think,
Yeah,
because I believe that humility gives you the space to be inspired.
absolutely. Agreed.
Whereas like if you
100%.
think some oftentimes you hear these things, well, what has he done or what has she done to be able to tell you this? But if you have the openness to be inspired by any experience or person around you, to me, you open your mind to tremendous amount of inspiration, creativity, and growth.
Hmm. I'm thinking of one moment in particular during the pandemic. It was 2020 summer, and we were going out of our minds. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to take my laptop. I'm going to go across the street. I'm going to sit. There's, the music garden. And I sat. And within minutes, two moms came with two or three toddlers, and they pulled out bubbles and they were cooing, and running around in bubbles, and the sky was blue. And I remember going, oh my gosh, look at this pure joy. Look at this pure, it was like some divine something scent. And I wrote a whole piece about it. Just the pure act of submitting and letting go and allowing yourself to be open. I did not know what was going to happen. I thought I was going to, do some work and be all surly in my, and here come these little ones who have no clue what's going on around them, by the way. And come and they are so, oh my gosh, it was so
Mhm.
pure joy. And it reminded me of pure joy and little things. My late, he's passed now, but one of the pioneers of the sports psych field in Canada, Terry Orlick, he was a great mentor to me. And he wrote books and always talked about simple joys. It's all about the simple joys because when you learn to experience the simple joys and have gratitude for the simple joys. So you're not starting with thank you for my big job. You're starting with thank you for this walk that I'm on right now. Thank you for the road that I get to walk on in peace as a woman, for the most part. Thank you for this blue sky today. Thank you for my feet, that while I have this condition, I get to walk still. Thank you for the grass. Thank you for the flowers. Thank you for this beautiful water. Simple things. Because when you start there, right, then the gratitude for the big things is easier because you're already in that zone. And also, if you're giving gratitude to small things, then the universe can bring you more. If you're
Right.
not appreciating what's around you, what's immediate, you know.
It's interesting because I do my 90-day 3-2-1 challenge. I'm on day 10.
Yes.
And what's so exciting about it is that I have so much things I'm grateful for. I actually have to write them down now. Before I'll
Yeah.
just come to my ship, I'm like, I have like every day I'm writing down after I pick the ones that I want to talk about that day. And it's a
Yeah.
great space to be mentally and emotionally. It's a great space to be when you're so grateful that you have to
Yes.
be selective of what you want to be.
Hmm.
Ayan, I want to take this conversation and I want to expand it out.
Okay.
So if when you're looking at the current world today,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And we talk about young people could be from age 6 to 45. Whatever young means to you, it could be young in your marriage, it could be young in your career, whatever youth means to you.
Mhm.
What concerns do you have about the modern world in terms of their mindset?
You know, I think about this a lot because I have had the privilege of going into many underserved schools over the past couple of years and speaking to them about mental health and different things. And I mean, one of the main things and most obvious things, I think it underlies so much, is just the age of social media. You know, it's not that things are not happening around us that are concerning, but the rate at which we are receiving all of that information, right? Thinking about 4 or 5 generations ago, our brain has not adjusted to consume the amount of information that we are being fed. And even myself, as a, middle-aged person, my gosh, I can't believe I'm saying that. But as a middle-aged person, I have to delete my app, my Instagram or whatever, when I'm feeling overwhelmed. And I know that it's because it's too much. I'm ingesting too much. And they're not able to see that in the same way. So I just feel like their mental health is being attacked in such a direct way from all that they are consuming on social media. There's all the comparison, right? You see all these things in the way that people are living and seem to be living, let's say, because who knows, people are showing you their highlight reel. And then you're a 13-year-old girl or a 15-year-old boy or whatever, and you are desiring these things, but knowing that you can't. It has an impact, right? And so what I've been trying to do, and even, friends of mine, we've been saying, we have to get back to community. We have to get back to what can we do in our own spaces? How can we find joy? How can we serve others who are less fortunate? How can we be attentive to our families? Put the phone down, have a movie night where you're not consumed by social media. It's hard. We all do it. That's what concerns me the most is that there's all this information, it's readily available. How do we vet what's real from what isn't? So much is being fed to us. That really concerns me about this next generation and how their 30s and 40s are what that's going to look like for them, having been through this period of their lives where they are um, you know, inundated with this kind of information.
I am.
Yeah.
I always tell this story. You remember Oriole Community Center,
Yes, I just can't remember where
right?
it.
Right between on Don Mills between Shepherd and Finch,
Yes, 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 yes.
right? They used to have a lot like Harriet Tubman used to be there.
Mhm. Yes, yes, I do.
So I used to work there after school,
Hmm.
and um, used to have this bad habit. I used to have my laces used to come undone,
Hmm.
and I used to do the after school basketball programs.
Hmm.
And one day, my coworker said, "Jeff, your laces aren't done." I'm like, "I'll get it as soon as I get inside." And I tripped and I flew across the gym, and I had about like 45 people just laughing their heads off. And I'm thinking about that now. If that was today, that would have been filmed, and 2 million people would have seen it in 10 minutes.
100%. Yep,
And that level of echo is a lot of pressure to put on young people.
absolutely.
But you
Because we
go
just
ahead.
to piggyback on that, we were given space to mess up, you know?
Correct.
You think about that. I think about things that, you did as a young person. You go, ooh, like you shudder to think that that would come up and be on record and be on the internet
Forever.
permanently. I
Right.
mean, it does not give them space to make mistakes, to fall down, to get back up, to look foolish, to feel that sense of, oh my gosh, I failed, but it's okay, I'll be okay. It's constant reminder and bombardment of that. That's very tough. So as parents, I think parents and teachers have a very hard job of ensuring that your child does not fall prey to the societal pressures and norms based on what you're trying to teach them in these underserved schools. As you know, as a teacher, they're single parents, they're parents with two, three jobs. No one's there, no one's enforcing that. So the kids are just falling into whatever. It's very, very tough, very tough. Yeah, I can only imagine.
I wonder if you can go a little deeper into something that you said I found very fascinating. I've never heard someone articulate the way you did, which I think is fantastic. You mentioned about our brains
Mhm.
not being conditioned for the amount of information that we're receiving. Can you just
Mhm.
go deeper into that kind of physiology for me?
Sure. I mean, so think about, the way that we process, like anything, if you have something that's upsetting, it takes time to process. It takes time for that to kind of flow through. You may be a person who gets over things quickly. You may be a person who takes a few days, right? So there's a time factor that we have with processing information. Now, with the degree and the speed and the um, what is it, amount, I suppose, of information that's coming, there isn't the time allotment or allowed for your brain to really process what you're learning. Like you don't have that space. You see one thing, the next moment there's something else. So your brain is on overdrive. It's being it's being packed in with information, and it's like a computer processor. I don't know much about computers, even though I did computer science anyway. But so there it's like just think of what can I liken it to? Say you were to put on some electrical, like a blender or like a NutriBullet or something, right? If you were to put that on and just keep it going, 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 eventually, like it's meant to work in a particular way, but eventually it'll crash and burn, like it'll just break down, right? So it's in the same way. The brain cannot function on overdrive. This is why we need to sleep. This is why we need to take breaks during our day because it's like not giving it a rest to kind of go like take a breath, the brain taking a breath kind of thing. And then it can go again. It's like refueling, right? But the way that we consume information today, it is not conducive to the way our brains are designed at this time.
It's very interesting. I do a practice with my daughter,
Hmm.
who's my Dee Dee's an often source of my inspiration.
Yeah.
But we do this morning practice, right, where we hold hands and we take 10 deep breaths together.
Ooh,
And then we
great.
breathe in love, we breathe out fear, we breathe in peace, we breathe out frustration, breathe in confidence, we breathe out doubt, we breathe in joy, we breathe out sadness, and we breathe in focus, we breathe out distraction. And we do it
Mhm.
twice. And it takes about 2 minutes. But when there are days that we do it, and the days when we don't, Dee Dee's a different kid.
That's amazing.
And I think it's because she's just been given some time
Mm-hmm.
just to hold still for a second,
Hmm.
right? Without
Yeah.
consuming, you know, the movie or just consuming her activity or hearing from her her parents saying that she has to do her homework or hearing like from her teacher or from a friend, just to have like some space
Hmm.
be. And I consider that as a kind of like a mindfulness kind of practice. Where does mindfulness or meditation or breathing or staying still play in your practice?
Oh, huge, huge. I actually do meditations for my clients. Like I will do it for them live, I will lead it, and then I will record it and send it to them. It's huge, right? And it's huge for me in my own life. Recently, in the past 3, 4 months, I started meditating every single night before bed, sometimes in the morning. But I find that it's my way. It's not everyone's way, but it's my way of giving myself space, time, um, and yeah, giving myself the space and time. And again, that compassion component of like, this is my self-care time to reconnect to myself, to decompress from the day. And also for my clients, it's a way of getting them to visualize the life that they want, things that they are desiring, kind of thing, and a way of getting them to connect back to themselves. I think that's really important. We're so disconnected from ourselves and who we are and what makes us brilliant and beautiful. And I think meditation is a good way for most people, not for everyone. Because meditation, if you haven't done a lot of healing work, meditation can take you to a place, as you probably know, where you're deep in your mind. But the first time that I meditated, um, a lot of angry thoughts came up and I did not know what to do with them because I'd never stayed still for that long. So it's also a practice of you meditate for 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, then 15 minutes. It's very grounding. It's very centering. It just allows you the space for 15 minutes to not think about work, family, just you, just you connecting to source, connecting to your inner peace, your inner self, your inner groundedness, reconnecting to who you are. That's a big part of my work is who are you?
Hmm.
Who are you? I'm fortunate to have known you as a young person, right? But a lot of people forget who am I? What makes me fantastic and great? And what are the things I was great at as a kid? Meditation is a great modality for that.
What I find for me is my practice is I do a 15-minute, but it's the purpose of my morning meditation is to raise my vibration, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But then when I have to do something creative, right? I kind of take a deep breath to connect back to that energy
Hmm.
to get my creative flow going. So
Yes.
it's kind of like I look at it as like in the morning, I kind of like build a reservoir.
Hmm.
So when I need it, I can connect to it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it depends, you know. Um, some people I like I'll have a bath and meditate. So it's like my body's decompressing and my mind is, that tends to carry me through the night and into the next day. But I love that idea of create in either of those scenarios, you're creating the space to give yourself more of a buffer, right? When you haven't meditated, I'm sure you can feel it. You can feel it physiologically. You can feel it mentally and psychologically that you don't have as much bandwidth and capacity to deal with what life's throwing at you. When you raise your vibration like that, it's like you're here and you want to be here. So that as life comes, there's space, right? But if you start here and life comes, now you're at a deficit. Now you're going lower and you want to be as high in that vibration as possible, right? Even through your sleep, even throughout the day. And it just gives you that space where you're like, okay, life is coming at me. I can still handle it. I'm not at my breaking point yet. And I
Yeah,
love
it
that.
allows you to clearly think.
Yes, for sure.
Um, we've kind of gone to a lot of important topics,
Hmm.
but this is something that I want you to think about our youth. If someone came to you and said, I'm not doing too well, I need some advice.
Hmm.
How would you advise our youth today?
Um, in terms of what they might be facing, like how would I advise them?
Yes, in terms of how do you advise your youth to create a mindset for success?
Ah, okay. Um, So again, for me, it's not so, I mean, yeah, I could just say, like, okay, so when you feel stressed, do some deep breathing and, I'll teach you how to meditate and I can give those things. But what I found is I was working with at one school, and there was this one girl who had she was so sweet, and she had such a but also had this volatile kind of aspect to her personality. And she was told to do this when she feels like she's going to burst. But what I found is we weren't getting to the root of the problem. We weren't addressing her actual
Ish.
issue. And so I'm always weary of that, right? Okay, do this, try this. And it's these little band-aid fixes. And I'm aware that there's way more going on beneath the surface that we need to address. So I guess to answer your question, I would start with, the basic things like here's some deep breathing techniques that you can use right away when you're feeling like you're getting overwhelmed, when you're feeling like you have no control over your situation, right? Are you there? Okay.
Of course, yes.
Um, yeah, like when you're feeling like life is out of control, I want you to stop. I want you to take some deep breaths. I want you to ground yourself. I would remind them that life is happening around you, but you have to learn that you're in control of your person. Um, Try to encourage them to talk to someone, that in itself can be challenging, but that would be something that I would want for them, is that they can have an outlet to speak about what's going on the inside. Um, and to know that, life is not always going to work out in the way that you want. So how do you set your mind up for success when life is not happening? And I think it's about knowing how to stay grounded, in themselves. Oh, it's a tough one. Even the teachers were so frustrated. It's just so hard to deal with young people. But I would say I did have the opportunity as well to do some mindfulness meditation with youth. Um, and they loved it. It was really something that they thought that at the end of it they could really hold on to, and they felt calmer at the end of it after we did it. So maybe helping them to develop those practices for themselves, a meditation practice for themselves, a breathing practice. Um, because my mind, as you asked that question, my mind is going in a million directions in terms of it's so specific to the kid. It's so specific to their needs. It's so specific to who they are and how they relate and what they've been put through and what the situation at home is, to give a
Mhm.
blanket statement for all children is challenging. But I would say to teach them, I think the more that we can teach children about mindfulness meditation and breath work, huge impact.
It's interesting because I want to just touch on you mentioned school.
Mhm,
And in my program, one of my sections that I have is about school,
mhm,
right? And it's basically strategies to be successful in the imperfect system.
mhm.
How do you think schools are helping kids develop their mindset? And how do you think schools are hurting kids develop their mindset?
Um, I think again, a million different directions. I think it depends. Are you in a school that is set up for and has, programs in place to promote these kinds of ideas? Or are you in a school where I've seen teachers look like they were dragged by like they are just run ragged? Because again, the social media thing, and the kids have phones and they're on their phones during class and during my presentations, and you're having to ask kids to get off the phone. So they're not even respecting the authority, because they don't have to, because there are other authority figures, I guess, on social media. But I think that I've seen, some teachers who are great, who just have that extra wiggle room and capacity to reach the students. It's that one teacher that all the students are like, Miss, 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 and you can see that it's like so much respect. And then another teacher will come and they'll just be like, what do you want kind of thing. So I think it starts from the top. And if that principal and vice principal, if they are all engaged and enrolled in this, what we're talking about, like how to get kids to connect. And if you're having a moment, okay, take a minute. Or you want to do some breaths, you have 2 minutes. You can do some deep breathing over in the corner, like that kind of thing. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. I
That's
think
okay.
that's my thinking now. Yeah.
It's funny because I asked another teacher the same
Mhm.
question, and she said almost the exact same thing you said. She said depends on the
Mhm.
teacher,
Depends on the teacher, depends on the school, depends on the leadership.
right? She
If
said,
I've been to schools where the all day it's putting out fires. That's it. From the moment they enter the school, it's who pushed the teacher? What? Not going to school? Has a gun? What? Like,
right.
how can you even connect to center yourself? You're in fight or flight. You
Hmm.
enter the school in fight or flight mode. Let's go. So and then you have another school where it's like Zen. I don't know if any school really is like that in these times. Admittedly, I don't have children, so I don't know except these underserved schools. But if you've got, parents who are more financially well off, and it's a different socioeconomic bracket that goes to this school. Therefore, you have funding for different things that another school just won't have.
Won't have the
Then
resource.
the children are being served in a different way, right? Of course, they're going to be the group of them that are not doing what everyone else is doing, but for the most part, yeah, there will be different results, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's interesting because I when I start my program, I always start with defining your North Star,
Mm,
right? Like who do you want to be? What
hmm
kind of person do you want to be?
hmm
What do you want to be remembered as? Because I find what happens is because there's so much noise, right? There's so much information, there's so much coming at them. Kids don't know who they are and how
Absolutely.
they're going to make a difference in the world versus what they're told by all these authorities.
Yes.
Good way of saying it, right? Not just the teacher,
Yes.
but all these different authorities around them telling them who they should be, who they should
Mhm.
want to emulate, what should they should value. And I don't think a lot of kids are in touch with what they really value and given
Yeah.
the space to kind of think, well, what is important to me?
Mm.
I talked to someone the other day. We had another powerful mindset interview, Nigel, and he was
Mhm.
saying that someone asked him, "What do you stand for?" And
Mhm.
he couldn't answer it,
Mhm.
right? He couldn't answer it. Like he didn't know.
This is an adult or a
Well, he said he
kid?
was a young adult at the time, and
Okay.
that changed around. He wanted to know, what do I stand for?
Mhm.
And that question kind of spurred his direction to end up being a very successful adult.
Right.
But I think it's one of those things where having kids the space to define that
Hmm.
gives them a chance.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I think the talks and the program, I was doing it through my friend Kim, who has, I think it's called Make Your Mark. And just introducing these ideas is so important because it's not going to land on every single child.
Mm-mm.
It will land on some, 100%. It's like just planting the little seeds, you know? I remember I was doing my internship with Ontario Basketball, and I was doing some hours through one of the coaches at their high school. I think it's Peel something. And one of them was a supreme athlete, apparently, and was invited to try out for a basketball team, and he didn't show up. And so I walked in on the teacher going off on the student. And as I looked around, I just thought, This kid did not believe that he was good enough. That's why he didn't go,
Hmm.
right? You're invited. You're not even the tallest guy in the on the team, and you're invited to a tryout. There's no one at home reflecting back to him. No, go try. You should do it, you know? So all he's left with is his own inner beliefs, and those were, I'm not good enough. And so I then came in as the mental performance consultant, and then I did my whole spiel. And then I started to say, because you're worth it, because you're worth it, because you're worth, and I started looking around and I could just see the look of
I am
what?
worth it.
Or like, what is she even talking about? Like, I've never heard that before, right? And in that moment, I knew, okay, that's something that these kids don't hear. They don't hear it enough. It's not told to them. There's no one to say, you're worth it. Go do it. You're amazing. You're talented. You're gifted. The things it's called, mirroring in development, right? A little kid goes, "Oh, I did this. Oh, good job. Good job." Right? It's just
Right,
click,
right, right.
click. And so these kids are missing those things developmentally. And so then you grow up and you don't know who you are. You're a teenager, then you're a 20-year-old, then you're a 30-year-old. Now I'm working with executives who don't know who they are. When I ask them to write 5 things about themselves, they freeze. Grown-ups at the top of their field.
Fascinating, Ayanna. Well, Ayanna, this has been absolutely inspirational. I've gained so much wisdom and knowledge as I always do talking to you. Ayanna, tell the people where they can find you.
Okay, so my website is ayannasealy.com. I'm at Ayanna_Sealy. I think maybe MHK, but definitely Ayanna_Sealy on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Ayanna Sealy on Facebook.
All right, my cousin, it's been
Yes.
amazing. This has been
Thank
fantastic. Thank you
you. It
so much
was
for your
great.
time, and I'll
Thank
talk to you
you.
soon.
Okay.